Dave Meltzer, who I believe is probably the guy who gets accused the most for being an AEW homer,
Hmm.
when in reality that has not been true in a long time. Not no, I don't. It was never true, but I think he was more positive to them than he was to WWE or TNA or anybody else.
Hmm.
I think his coverage of like his taste kind of fits what he likes the most there, and he clearly has a relationship with Tony Khan. So it seemed like his coverage was leaning more always towards positive for AEW. Um, but it has been a 180 for a long
Hmm.
time. And he lately has been beating up AEW kind of, and it's almost like he's writing to Tony Khan specifically, like, hey, you're gonna have to get this stuff cleaned up because yes, you have all this new money from this television deal, but your popularity continues to rapidly decline. And the WWE with their new Netflix deal is seemingly somehow more popular this year than they even were last year, which is pretty unbelievable if you think about
Hmm.
it. Because last year was the biggest year they've ever had, and then this year is probably going to be even bigger.
Yeah.
Um, so fan interest hasn't increased despite the TV deal. AEW's ratings and ticket sales continue to decline, especially in the 18 to 34 demographic. This is notes from the Observer. AEW is losing viewers to Max streaming, although Dynamite still performs well on cable. So HBO Max did come out this week and say that AEW was among the top sports programs on Max, but didn't provide any data, didn't provide anything. It just kind of said it. And
Hmm.
now I've seen people online say, oh, they're getting like over 1 million views on Max, which is completely unbelievable and not even remotely true. If somebody wants to challenge that and actually provide data, I would love to cover it. Um, in fact, I go into Max to watch Collision last night because I'm in Hawaii. I have to watch on delay, and it's not even on the front page.
Hmm.
And even though I've watched every episode of Dynamite since it's been on Max, it's still not in my like algorithm to put that on my front page, right? So it's still like there's a bunch of other stuff, but it's still not there. So I always have to search for it every week. So that tells me that it can't be doing that great on Max.
Yeah. It's
So
one of those things like where, when I was in high school and I would run in a race and finish in fifth, but there was like
yeah,
five people running, I'm still finishing top five.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there's not that much competition. Like Max, it does have NBA. I think they have some hockey. Somebody may correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think they have hockey. But
I
if
don't know.
there's not a lot of,
I don't know that NBA or hockey is even on there.
I do think they simulcast maybe.
Do they? I don't think they
On
do.
So what other sports would be on there? I mean, if you're among the top
Hold
finishers
on.
in sports, there's got to be
You know
other
what?
sports on
This
there.
computer that I'm talking to you in has a lot of information on it. Hold on.
Mm.
What sports are live streamed on Max? All right, let's see. Stream the NBA and okay, yeah, so you're right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
60% of the time, I'm right every time.
There. Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go.
So yeah,
Okay.
if you've got 3 or 4 sports on there, of course you're gonna be among the top finishers because there's not like 100 events that's happening every week for you to finish, in the bottom half.
Yeah.
So you can just
Antonio
put
Baker
that
says
out
they have
there.
hockey in the live sports section. That's where AW is in the live sports section. So I guess when I'm scrolling through, I need to go over to live sports.
Mhm.
I guess that's okay. So maybe it's just me. Maybe I just don't know what I'm doing, which is like pretty typical for me. The company's initial appeal was that it was a true alternative to WWE, but now it has too many ex-WWE stars, a stale format, and weak baby faces. The show has no clear future direction and lacks strong young stars. And many fans feel AEW isn't presenting itself as a major league promotion, and are frustrated with the product. That frustration carried over with the Dynamite this week, as it did not get good reviews at all. In fact, it was one of the weaker Dynamites. Collision was actually pretty good, I thought, but it just didn't feel big time.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of the problem with the product right now. They have a lot of old stars. Jeff Jarrett, 57 years old, being pushed in the main event scene. He's taking on 44-year-old Claudio Castagnoli next week. Adam Copeland and Pac main evented this week, and Adam Copeland obviously is, if he's not 50, he's almost 50.
I think he's
The Rock,
51.
yeah, the Rock and Roll Express are part of the storyline.
Yeah.
So, which I think I can't tell if that's Ricky Morton or Chris Jericho. They look so similar to me right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Chris Jericho obviously still a major push star. Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley are getting a big push in the tag team division right now. They just squashed Private Party, which
Yeah.
I think I'm actually kind of with, honestly. I
So
like,
Benjamin and Lashley are 49 and 48
yeah,
respectively, but they are incredibly over. The only problem is they're over as faces when they're supposed to be heels. So I
yeah,
think they need to address that at some point. And it's the same thing that happened when they were in WWE as the Hurt Business. Like they were supposed to be heels, but everybody just freaking loved them.
yeah.
At some point, you're just going to have to turn them face. But it would be another concern that your most over tag team is 49 and 48 years old.
Yeah, but I'm watching them and neither of them look that old. Like, so the
No.
problem with like Jericho, Edge, and Jarrett, they're all like, and Edge and Jarrett, like they're in like pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Jericho, not
It's
not
not.
necessarily,
Yeah.
but they look every bit their age as far as in their face goes. Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin might as well be 35 to me. Like I'm
Yeah.
just I know they're old because I've been watching them on TV for 20 years. And I've obviously been a big fan of theirs for a long time. So I know that they're old, but they don't look that old. Shelton Benjamin is not moving so quickly these
Yeah.
days, but he still looks like he's great. And the tag team, they squashed Private Party this week. They squashed them last week. They're the new tag champions. I like them as tag champions. I think that keeps them away from the world title scene. I don't think they need to be involved in that. And I kind of look at them as being like, Dr. Death and Terry Bam Bam Gordy, kind of like that level, like just kind of an ass kicking tag team, which
Yeah.
this company hasn't had. Like they've had the Young Bucks, which they're not ass kickers, they're just great match havers.
Hmm.
FTR, they were heels for a while, not their babyface, but they're not ass kickers either. They're just really good wrestlers. Private Party, the worst tag team champions in the history of the company by far. They were never over. They don't try to get over. They're just doing the same shtick they were doing 5 years ago, and they have not improved one bit. Um, you know, I actually liked Big Bill and Ricky Starks, but we'll get into Ricky Starks in a little bit. But I think I kind of dig this Shelton and Lashley tag team. I'm into them.
Yeah. One of my other concerns, I really definitely think they have to make them face at some point.
Yeah.
I just really worry that in the future, sometime this year, we're going to see Edge and Christian versus Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, and it'll be the oldest tag title match in company history. All
Yeah.
Terrence and they're all elderly wrestling in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, wrestling as a whole has gotten older.
Yeah, well, guys are in their physical, not prime, but physically better for longer now. Like you're
Yeah.
not on the road wrestling 250, 300 days a year anymore.
Right. Because,
The medicine nowadays is a little bit cleaner and a lot better. So guys can perform longer. Like Finn Balor, like that guy doesn't look 42 or 43, but he's in his early 40s.
yeah. And he didn't come to the company until he was like 34, 35.
Yeah,
And same with AJ Styles. I think AJ came to the company was like 36, and
yeah.
he hasn't been on TV in a long time, but he's pushing 50,
Hmm.
and he's still pretty good. Randy Orton,
Yeah.
doesn't do a whole
40s.
lot, but he obviously he's like way up there. And Cody Rhodes is almost 40 now, and so
Yeah.
and Roman Reigns is 40-ish.
I
So
think Cody and Roman are 37, 38-ish right now.
yeah. So
So
I think just wrestling as a whole is just like the stars have gotten older. What I think pro wrestling needs is an influx of young talent to kind of break through the ceiling, which is kind of something we were having in the late 90s,
yeah.
specifically with WCW, where Hogan and Luger and Sting and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were kind of like holding back, Benoit,
Mhm.
Jericho, Guerrero, and these other cats. And so they ended up leaving and going somewhere else, and they were getting pushed. And then that problem started to exist in the WWE eventually. And so that people ended up leaving there. And now they went over to AEW. And now that problem's existing in AEW where the young stars just can't get through. They can't break through because these old dudes just won't get the hell out of the way.
Yeah, I think
At some point, you got to give.
that's one of the bigger things that Nick Khan has been doing in WWE was getting away from signing all the mid 30s, late 30s indie wrestlers and pushing more for the NIL stuff
Yeah.
because now you've got Braun Breaker mid 20s, Oba Femi waiting in the wings mid 20s, you got Tiffany Stratton mid 20s, Rhea Ripley's still only like 28, and is the
Right.
most over female in all of wrestling. And AEW has the resources, they have the money to do something similar. You don't have to do an entire system like WWE has. You're not making $1 billion a year, but you still can. You have Ring of Honor, you've got Daily's Place. Tony Khan is a billionaire. They are making almost $200 million a year. Set up a system to get some young guys ready, because when all of your biggest stars are 40 plus, some of them 50 plus, you've got to worry about the future of your company.
Yeah, and I think, Dave talked about it this week, but JD and I have been talking about this forever, and we've been calling out Private Party, and specifically Private Party and Hook, for a long time, because they're just not out there hustling, working everywhere. And I think the belief is that Tony Khan should be forcing them to do that, kind of like what we saw with Fraxium on Impact this week. Like WWE is just like, no, you're going to TNA this week, and you're just going to go have a really good match and then come back. And so now they're actually like going to TNA and getting more reps and getting more work in over there. And I think that's a good thing. And I think AEW needs a system like that, but I think they need a stream of independent promotions around the country and around the world where they can do that. I think it was smart. I think they recently didn't they send, who did they send to Japan recently? A female. I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been Julia Hart. I can't remember, but they've sent some female talent over to Japan. I think they need to do that more. Send them to CMLL.
Well, I know Athena went over there for Stardom, but she had wrestled Stardom before.
But they need to send them over there for like 4 months, and then you know what I mean, and have them come back. Okay, Nathan. Thank you, Nathan, keeping me on track.
Anna J. Yeah. I also think they should, not a touring house show, but they need to do something like what NXT does, where they have small 500 to 1,000 person house shows just in Florida. So you're not spending the cost on the traveling across the country, not really worried about making much money on it, but get a couple big stars on it. Moxley would probably go to those. Edge would probably go to one, and then have all of your young guys on it. That's where Hook probably needs to be wrestling at least once a week on a show like that. And you've got to recruit the guys who want to go out and do that too. You said WWE sent Nathan Frazier and Axiom and forced them to go. I'm going to tell you, those guys were probably begging to go, because
their arms did not get twisted.
Because Axiom actually put on Twitter that he actually was a fan of TNA because it was what was on TV when he was in Spain, and that was a big thing for him when he was in Spain. Nathan Frazier, just a huge wrestling fan, always wanted to do that. And Frazier was a guy who was wrestling all over before WWE signed him. He actually wrestled on AEW Dark, I think.
Yeah, he did shorts of Dark, and he was also on TNA Explosion too against Chris Sabin.
Yeah, so and that not long before he got signed, he was always destined to be a WWE guy. He was trained by Rollins, so that was always going to happen. But you got to have guys who want it and want to go out. But I do think there might be some worries for guys who, especially towards the end of their contract, do I want to go out and wrestle an indie show, possibly get hurt, and that takes away my option of exploring other opportunities if I want to leave, because maybe my contract gets extended by 8 months. Is it worth it to those guys if they get extended for 8 months if they get hurt outside of AEW?
Right. Well, and these young guys are making, either close to or over 6 figures for AEW, and they're wrestling like 2 or 3 times a month.
Yeah. If that. Yeah.
Yeah. If that, and it's not worth it to them to go to an independent promotion for a couple $100. And so that's why I'm like, they need to have a system in place to almost like force these young guys, like, hey, we're gonna send you to a contract, but here are the promotions. These are the ones you're gonna work, and like you don't get to go over there. And so one of the problems with Tony when he was working with Impact before, because we thought this was going to happen with Impact, they sent Private Party to Impact before, but then the edict was Private Party can't lose, right? So they're in the ring with Eric Young and Joe Doring, but Private Party can't lose. So they had to put a third tag team in, right? Because he's not willing to let his guys, because he thinks so little of Impact, and he probably thinks so little of these independent promotions. You got to get rid of that ideology. Yeah. If you want them to not lose, then it's never going to work. They have to be able to lose matches, right? I'm not saying they have to get buried, but you have to be willing to let your guys lose when they're going around to these other promotions. Because if not, like, it's just never going to work. Which is why this NXT WWE or TNA thing is working because TNA guys go to NXT and they lose, NXT guys go over to TNA and they lose, and vice versa. And when it's like more equal level stars, they're having the matches and they're losing in a storyline way, with shenanigans and things like that. So that's why it's working. So you got to get rid of the, hey, I can't let my guys lose type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be willing to let them eat shit a little bit. So if you're gonna send Private Party, they should build a House of Glory and go wrestle whoever the fuck, and you don't need to worry about what the outcome is because no one's watching anyway, right?
Yeah.
Just worry about the outcomes on your program. Don't worry about what they're doing outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And Deadlock Pro, is it Deadlock Pro Wrestling DPW? I would definitely
Yeah.
try to get involved with those guys because there seems to be a lot of good talent coming out of there, a lot of good wrestling coming out of there. But man, this is something I talked about a couple years ago with Hook specifically because
Yeah.
him and Tiffany Stratton started, at least in ring wise, right around the same time. It was like a month apart. And within like a 2 month span, Stratton had like doubled the amount of matches that Hook had
Right.
had. And I'd pointed it out. I was like, hey, look, Hook is still doing 4 or 5 moves. It's, 3 suplexes and his chokehold. And you've got Tiffany Stratton busting out all these kinds of things. And everybody said, well, all their matches are pre-worked out. They're all routines that they, plan ahead and then go out and perform. That's fine. The match still comes off great. Like, if I'm watching a movie, it doesn't take away from the fact that they rehearsed it to me.
Yeah.
I know what I'm watching.
Right.
But Stratton was wrestling 3 or 4 times a week. Hook was wrestling 1 or 2 times a week, and then
Yeah.
even bumped down from that.
Yeah. I
And
think
he's not,
he was wrestling 1 or 2 times a month, really.
yeah, and he's not much of a different performer now than he was 3 years ago whenever he got started.
Yeah.
Um,
He
so
not
they've
only
got to figure something out.
yeah, he hasn't improved at all, and he has no more aura. The aura is
Mhm.
gone.
That was the thing is like everybody's like, oh, but he's over. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a good looking young guy. That's only going to take him so far.
Yeah, yeah. Eventually, the bell has to ring, and you have to
Yeah.
be able to talk, right? And if you can't talk, then like you better be a big bad motherfucker at that
Hmm.
point, to where your facial expressions and your look will get you over, right? Like
Yeah.
big, strong beasts can get away with not talking, right?
Yeah.
But little
Omos.
guys like that have to rely on a lot of things. They need a lot of
Yeah.
tools in the shed.
Yeah.
So but
And
yeah, they definitely got to figure out something. Dave made the point in the Observer. They need to focus on future stars for 2026, not just short term booking for 2025. Look, they're doing I don't want to say they're not doing a good job with everybody. They're doing a great job with Kyle Fletcher and
mhm.
Takeshita. I think both of those guys are primed. I think both those guys are primed to be the head of the company in 2026, right? I think
Yeah.
they're going to be the top stars. I do worry that some of these guys in their 50s are still going to be lingering around till
Mhm.
then. And they're going to be the top stars in the company with dwindling crowds. And that's one of the things that, kind of sucks. They're losing a perception war. They're losing it completely to WWE. But right now, TNA is kind of perceived as a company that has more energy and more momentum. Nobody's saying that they're number two. No, like
Well, some
nobody
people are
worthy
nobody
of respect. Yeah.
yeah. Some
No,
people
nobody
believe
worthy of
it,
respect is
but
even remotely hinting at them being number two. But if you watch Genesis and you watch this week's Impact, and then you also watched Dynamite and Collision, the wrestlers in AEW are much better. Like they just
mhm.
have more talent and like they're the higher level of talent. But you can't tell me that Genesis and Impact didn't have more energy. The
Yeah.
crowd was way more into those shows than Dynamite and Collision this week. Wait, it's not even a difference. In fact, like on if you were just like a person flipping through the channels and you had those two shows like side by side, you would probably think, and if you just didn't know any better, you would probably think that the company that TNA was probably a bigger deal, just
Yeah.
because it seemed like the crowd was way more into it, despite the fact they have the lesser talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to like what really launched the possibility of TNA was the original All In, the first All In, and the
Yeah, you're talking about
executives were there.
AEW, not the original TNA, original
Yeah, yeah,
AEW.
sorry. The regional
Yeah,
AEW, the launch of AEW. And the executives who are all TV executives all there just seeing Bullet Club shirts everywhere, right? And even though
yeah,
that was New Japan, it was the show in America with most, Ring of Honor talent, some New Japan talent. And Tony Khan was able to say, hey, like, look, this stuff outside of WWE is cool. It's hot right
yeah,
now. And that's what helped launch AEW. That's what helped launch Dynamite and get them on TNT as opposed to Access TV or Discovery or whatever channels else were out there. AEW's just, and I think Dave said it plenty of times, they're just not cool right now.
Yeah.
They're not fun. They'll always will have great matches. You can every week find at least one match from AEW that will be 4-star or above, something that you'll always enjoy if you enjoy in-ring work. But it's not stuff that's just fun that you're excited to watch every week, you know? And that's something that WWE is doing very well right now. Their crowds are energetic. They just have characters that people are bought into. They have characters that people want to see win, people that they want to see lose. I'm not sure AEW's had that in a long time, like somebody that they're actually cheering to win or somebody they're actually cheering to lose for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who want Jon Moxley to lose right now, but it's not because like he's coming off as a great heel, you know?
Right. Yeah. So I think their pay-per-views have that.
Always be money.
Yeah, their pay-per-views have like the people are invested in the pay-per-views. Nobody's really invested in their weekly television right now, and it's a shame because I think for the most part the shows are always really good. I thought Dynamite started off hot with the Kenny Omega Will Ospreay segment. Of course the cameras missed the dives that happened, the moonsaults. One was off the scaffolding and one was off like a balcony of some sort. And of course the cameras missed it, but then, they eventually got back to it, but that was like a hot opening. And then you got Shelton and Bobby Lashley winning the tag titles over Private Party, whom I have just not been happy with. So I was like, okay, we're on to something. And then the show just completely takes a nosedives. It just falls off a cliff the last hour or so. And that's kind of been, almost routine lately. So it's tough. I didn't catch the ratings, but I assume they were fine because nobody's going crazy, right?
Like the TV ratings?
Yeah.
I think they were like 665, somewhere around 650, 655, and
give or
like
take, like,
0.19.
you give or take like 5% of what they normally do, right?
Yeah, right around what they normally do. They did this week lose both the demo and the total viewers to NXT.
Yeah.
And that because normally NXT gets them on the total viewers, but not the demo.
So with the it's hard to compare the two because NXT is on CW. So
I get it's more widely broadcast, but it is a much smaller station. Like CW shows normally get 300,000 to 400,000, and NXT doesn't have the Sheldon boost. It doesn't have the Sheldon rub, getting them like 900,000 in the first quarter hour.
Big Bang Theory is a good show, but I just could not imagine continuing to watch those reruns. Like it's good, but it's not that good.
It's comfort background TV for millions of people.
I guess so.
Okay.
Well,
if you look,
I did like for years when Seinfeld. I think Seinfeld was on TBS for a long time. I used to watch just random episodes of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
So
if you look at Dynamite ratings every week, I would say 9 times out of 10, the largest quarter hour will be the first, and there will always be a drop off, and then the second largest will usually be somewhere around the middle. Yeah. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the first quarter hour from the Big Bang Theory. That lead in always helps them out.
Yeah.
NXT doesn't have that.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, they don't. They definitely don't have that. So, I hope they're able to turn it around.
I think a lot of things are going right. They just got to keep steady, and they've really got to fix that. The main event feud, the main event story of any wrestling show can make or break the show. Yeah. A lot of people are just done with this Death Rider stuff. I kind of agree with Dave. He said, just put the title on Omega. Yes. Figure the rest out later.
I said that as soon as I saw Omega versus Gabe Kidd. I was like, no, you know what? Yeah, just put it on Omega.